Beers, and this is Brick, Block, and Beers, and with me is
Jerry Painter. Glad to be here today.
yeah. So this is episode 1 for May, and we are just here to chat about masonry. So Jerry, are you ready to chat about masonry?
We can chat about masonry, whatever you want, whatever you think we need to chat about.
Well, I don't know. It's it's a dangerous world out there, Jerry.
It's real rough. It's tough.
Yeah. So we might want.
But masonry is apparently we're going to improve that over the old-fashioned 1/2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, I understand that we have new devices that have improved the I guess we could say productivity, but it also improves safety.
Well, Jerry, just so everybody knows, who they're talking to, why don't you give them a little bit of background on why you would be able to talk about safety on a masonry job site?
Well, I guess that would be, Don, that would be easy enough to do, because I've had basically 70 years experience in masonry from the time I was a kid, born into a masonry family. We were in the masonry business as contractors here in the state of Florida for over 52 years, and decided that we were tired and wore out. Part of that was because we got old in that 52 years. You get older.
Well, yeah, but you get a little wiser too.
That goes back to the old-fashioned thing that my dad's theory was, that there's never been a problem you can't outwork. But the older I got, some found out you need to work smarter sometimes than harder.
Jerry, tell us a little bit about the committees that you're on.
Oh, geez, Don, I've been busy all my life. I got into the service of the industry over 30 years ago, but I'm still working in ASTM committees that set standards for all the masonry products. I am still serving with TMS on the TMS 402-602 code, which is a specification and code. I'm also a member of BOAC, the Building Officials Association of Florida, and various committees for MAF and MCAA committees regarding legislation, codes and standards and safety and things of that nature. So having been in it, and my benefit is that I started with a trowel in my hand. I am a bricklayer.
And I am an engineer. So. And
there was a time when we didn't think that we could mix, but as has turned out over the years, I have found out that engineers and bricklayers, that's not oil and water.
Well, I got a little bit of construction background to go along with it. But you teach some courses on safety around the country.
Yes, sir. I teach either webinars or seminars, depending on which way it is, on the hazards of respirable silica. The MCAA has a certification program on that, and it has a renewal. I did the first run of 47 in 1 year when OSHA was finalizing the quote unquote new silica rule. I teach classes on scaffolding, and have taught classes on fall protection, and of course when I also teach an apprentice class now, and part of that naturally in the beginning is all the safety devices and the PPE and everything we need in order to be safe on the job site.
Well, what's the biggest issue right now? Is it the silica?
Right now, it's pretty much still the respirable silica. With COVID, interfering in everything, as you know, for the last couple of years.
Absolutely.
This started back in 18, and it was going to be the big thing for the last 2 years since COVID took over. If you've tracked the inspections that OSHA does monthly, you would find out for 19 and 20. For 19, a lot of stuff was typical and standard of construction. You had the violations would be your typical violations of maybe not having all the paperwork you needed, problems with fall protection, PPE, scaffolding and things like this, especially from the masonry side. But when 20 rolled around, then 20 and 21 have been problematic with COVID. When you look, there's just an overabundance of citations and violations cited that have to do with COVID related, mostly in places like nursing homes, hospitals, clinics, things. This is when to look at it, but that is COVID is.
Would that be on the job site?
It could be, because they actually had some information that was supposed to be provided, because construction never closed. Construction was deemed a necessary industry, and so construction kept going, and we had to make adjustments for the COVID. And there was some direction from OSHA on how to do that. Well, naturally, they're going to check all of that. But they're coming back now, and we're starting to pick up. But typical OSHA violations are going to be a lot of the paperwork and those things, but they're really paying attention to respirable silica. That's one that's basically easy to see.
Yeah, easy to see. Every job site I've ever been on, it pretty much covers everything on the job site.
It covers everything on the job
And
site.
every time a truck goes by, there's a big cloud of it that comes up.
It is really amazing when you think about that everybody looks at that and they stop and say that it's cutting concrete or cutting concrete block are the two major type things. And this is true, okay, it is, but there are other things that do that. If you're into demolition, that's an industry heavy with respirable silica because of the activities. Restoration of masonry work is another one cutting out, but you're correct. Once we got into this, I've been trying to tell them all my life that I know that back in my days as a kid of farming, out there in those old dusty roads, I know somewhere there had to be
There's a little bit of silica on the ground there.
Somewhere in that dust, there had to be some silica.
Well, I mean, our viewers are mostly masons.
Yeah.
So you're a mason contractor on a job site. You're not responsible for the trucks that roll by, for the silica on the roads. You're for the dust that's in. I mean, what part, when you're working as a mason on the job site, what part of that silica are you responsible for?
Well, the way the rule is written, as a masonry contractor, I'm responsible, number one, specifically for what we generate within our business, in our company, or in the operation of masonry. It could be sawing, it could be drilling. There are some people that think that there's enough respirable silica contained in cements and mortars that they're concerned with that. Those type of things, one of the big things for masons, once we get past the saw cutting, and typically most of that's done now with water. We've been doing it for years with water for various reasons. We don't need to go into that, but is the sweeping and cleaning up. You can't just, according to the rules, you can't just grab a broom and go to sweeping the floor.
Well, that brings up what about you're a mason contractor and you're on the job. You have, let's say you have 10 men working on the job as a mason contractor, and you have a job going on around you. are you also responsible for protecting your people from the dust that's being created by other entities on the job site? You don't necessarily control those entities, but yet you have people that are on the job.
This is one of the differences in the OSHA rule for respirable silica. Each contractor, no matter who creates the respirable silica, each contractor, each employer is responsible for protecting his people.
That's
either through engineering methodologies or PPE, whatever they have to do to follow the rules to protect their people. So if someone else is generating it, let's say a concrete cutting company is cutting holes for some reason without water or anything of that nature, then they could care less, could be their attitude, but you as a reputable contractor, employer, are going to take care of your people, and you're going to make sure that you have your work plan to take care of.
how do you know when there's enough silica in the air that you have to, that your employees working for you on the job site have to take some measure of protection?
Well,
I mean,
you're getting into the long rows here, Don, as we used to say. But typically the concept is, if you can see the dust, i.e. respirable silica, you need to be doing something about it. Now,
well, that's every job site
that
I've
is
been on all the time.
And quite honestly, that's a far reach. Okay, but if you have your plan the way it's written, you're supposed to have developed a plan, and this is one time that OSHA has helped us as an industry. They have set up some practical methodology. We call it Table 1 in the book, and there is a Table 1, and that's what it's called, but it will list the activity that creates respirable silica, and then it tells you what engineering you can do to reduce the exposure, and there's two things. It's either vacuum, which is collection, or water, which is suppression. Those are basically the two type of methods we've got that you can use. It will tell you which one to do, and then in Table 1 it will also tell you if respirators are required based on the length of time you're doing the task.
Well, it seems pretty. It's easy to understand with the task, particularly of cutting, that the mason would be doing himself. But the thing that I am envisioning as you're talking is on an active job site, you have got stuff going on that's creating dust everywhere. So your men are working in that environment, so that means that they always have to have some kind of respirator on. I mean, that'd be like the whole time you were at the job site.
Well, this is one of the reasons that OSHA developed Table 1, because there's a lot of that you can do if you're using collection or suppression. Now, that's just for you as an employer,
right,
for yourself. As you said before, and I recall a job site, Don, it was one of these summertime, there's tractors running, half a dozen forklifts going. I mean, if you weren't up on the scaffold, it was just a dusty operation. Now, whether you would have to test it, we didn't then, but now we would have to test it to see how much of that was respirable silica. Have someone to wear a collector to see. But we complained and used that concept of safety to complain to the general contractor that it was just difficult to do our work with all that much dust flying around the building, trying to get the parking lot ready and all of that. And went and brought in a water truck.
Well, that was back, you're talking about
I'm
back
talking about 4
anybody's
years.
talking-
I'm talking about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, just before the respirable silica program.
So this wasn't a result of OSHA coming on the job site. This is what you guys are having a hard time.
We're just having a hard time operating
Hard
because
time
of the
breathing.
quote unquote dust. And now we know that here in the state of Florida, what do we have? Most of our dirt is what?
But in that situation, Jerry, you did not have control
No, sir.
over the source of that dust. So the only thing that you could do would be to have your employees have some kind of respirator on. Is that what's being required on the job site now?
That there is an option for respirators. What we would call those nuisance respirators now. You have to be real careful with the respirable silica program, because if respirators are required either by table 1 or by the virtue of an employer testing how much exposure there is, could require a respirator. Table 1 and sometimes does, depending on the amount. The whole concept is how much exposure do you get in the course of 15 minutes or 4 hours or 8 hours. So sometimes we don't wear respirators, but for nuisance we can. You have to be careful because the use of a respirator triggers medical, it's called medical surveillance, but it triggers having an employee go to a proper doctor that gets qualified to do it, and they test them to see if they're able to perform with respirators, and are they physically and medically okay to be exposed to this. That's triggered by wearing a respirator 30 times.
When does the respirator, is that just like the the ones that fit over your face and have the band around your head?
Yes, sir. That's what we in the industry have failed to realize for years. Several years ago, there was a change made, and as we know in COVID, I can say an N95, and everybody, whether you're in construction or not, knows what an N95 respirator is.
Right.
Okay. Before years ago, we might put one on. It would have a single strap and just be the high face over the mouth and nose. Well, the N95s are a better quality product. They have 2 straps, and when I was teaching a class, I would ask them something, and I've had people speak up and say, well, that's the one with 2 straps. And I said, well, I can take a rubber band and a stapler and put 2 straps on anything, but what we did not treat that as a respirator, and that's covered. That high face N95 is a respirator in OSHA's sense of the word, and it has to be fitted to the face, and the person has to be checked for their breathing ability. Can they breathe with that thing on?
Well,
you see, that's the primary reason.
You're a little hairy there, Jerry.
Yeah,
so
that's the primary reason of my beard.
You might have a little problem with
That's the primary reason I have this. I won't be able to wear a respirator under any conditions because of this. But that brings a point up, because in order to be safe, and you need to consider that. What do we do with our hiring forms? HR. You're going to get a job and tell the guy in the morning, I need you to have your prize-winning beard shaved off. Some people won't take that.
Yeah, I think you're going to lose a few
That's
potential employees.
That's exactly right. And you don't want to do that, but you have to consider that. So probably this respirable silica issue has probably created the biggest difference in how we train our employees, how we record data, and how we follow our safety rules and develop plans, appoint competent person. This is another when it has to have a competent person. And that concept of competent person, we could sit here and talk.
The competent person will be for another discussion.
We'd have to do that another time, because right now there's probably 4 or 5 quote unquote on a construction site type of competent people. So, and here's another one, and this one's critical, because this is a life safety issue. And when you bring that into the situation, and here's the key. Number one of the results of exposure to respirable silica is silicosis. Okay? And it is a known fact, there is no fix. You can't undo it. There is no pill. There is no shot. Not everybody will get it, but that's not to say that you can't or won't. It's about exposure. And I can see from the hair on your head, you're old enough to remember when they first started putting
that's a lack of hair on my
well, okay, well, the color and lack, then I'm working on that. You're old enough to remember when they started putting a warning on cigarette packs. May be hazardous to your health. Well, respirable silica, depending on the person, no guarantee, but over a period of 2 years, 40 years, whatever, it could create silicosis. And if it does silicosis, that's tied to, and we won't get into that, but tied to a whole bunch of other things. It will not be changed. You can't undo it, and it could lead to the big C, which naturally is the cancer. And that's the reason we're
Jerry,
so critical.
On that happy note, I guess.
Joy.
About the end of our time together. But just to finish up the discussion, where is the best source of information for anyone who's watching this?
The best source of information should be, depending on if you are a masonry contractor.
For Mason, okay. This is our audience.
We're talking about masonry contractors here today. Would be to go to your local trade association if you belong to one. Here in the state of Florida, the Masonry Association of Florida. You can come to our association and we can direct you. MCAA, the Masonry Contractor Association of America, has a developed plan. It is a webinar or seminar. It can be done in person or not. Right now we're doing webinars that will give you the necessary training to put the program into effect, and has all the guidelines on their website. Okay. But that's where you need to go. I know that there's several states that have pretty strong groups that are working to notify everybody also.
Most of our audience is going to be in Florida, so wherever. So this is I'm Don Beers, and with Jerry Painter, and so that is the end of our first session of Brick Block and Beers. And any additional information that you need,
be safe.
Feel free to call us and contact us. We're on the web at Deb, where are we on the web at?
We'll put that on the bottom of the,
We're gonna have that on. It's gonna be right across the bottom, and you can go there and get additional information. So thank you very much, and goodbye.